Ardmore High School suffered major damage after flooding from the roof. The Will Rogers Elementary School counselor will soon have a school-wide team building program, and Plainview voters have a bond package to consider. Ardmore Decides 2026 concludes This Week in Ardmore. I'm News Director Michael Dean Smith. Thank you for downloading episode 57 of This Week in Ardmore. This is a weekly podcast from Ardmore Leader dedicated to independent coverage of local news. We're wrapping up our 10-part series Ardmore Decides 2026 this week with a look at two bond proposals for Plainview School District voters totaling $42 million. But before we get to that, let's get this podcast back to our regular format and catch up on a few things I've been following around Ardmore, Oklahoma for the week of March 27th. Ardmore High School students have been on virtual learning this week after flooding from rooftop geothermal units caused extensive damage to the building. That damage was first discovered last week during spring break, and school officials back on Thursday said that even more leaks have been discovered in the geothermal units. High school students transitioned to virtual learning this week, but a makeshift testing center was set up in the gym on Tuesday for planned ACT testing for high school juniors. While demolition of damaged classrooms started on Wednesday, so did cafeteria operations resume that day to prepare breakfast and lunch for students that have transportation. School officials are expected to announce next week's operational plans for the high school by late Friday afternoon. Carter County remains under a burn ban this week as fire conditions continued in the area. County commissioners on Monday renewing that ban for 7 days at the recommendation of area fire officials, and the National Weather Service forecasts pushed fire weather into the area on Friday. Ardmore fire officials on Thursday warned that high winds and low humidity are perfect conditions for fires to start and spread quickly. Some Ardmore voters will not be voting at their normal polling place next month. The Carter County Election Board on Thursday said that voters at the Springdale Community Center will instead use Mary Knee-Black Road Baptist Church in the upcoming local election. Election Secretary Diane Hall saying on Thursday that the precinct change was made due to the community center having a leaky roof and no air conditioning. The first election to be held in the temporary location will be the April 7th local elections. Ardmore Leader continued our investment into local education with the presentation of the March Project Leader Award. On Thursday, Will Rogers Elementary School counselor Penny Brady received a $500 Visa gift card for her project to begin a school-wide team-building program to boost engagement with students and teachers. The 11-part program includes things like monthly thematic activities that Brady hopes will improve attendance because the Grade Center's pre-K and kindergarten students won't want to miss the various games and activities she has planned. Voters in the Plainview School District will have two bond proposals to consider next month. In the Junction this week, I'll wrap up my 10-part interview series, Ardmore Decides 2026, by speaking with Carl Stricker. He's the superintendent at Plainview Schools, and we'll be talking about the bond package that's not expected to increase taxes. We'll also talk about what the spending is aimed at and how priorities were set in determining what needs need to be accomplished across a growing school district. And just a heads up, on Tuesday, I posted a resource guide for Ardmore voters ahead of the April 7th local election. And that post includes full interviews with all 8 candidates vying for 3 elected seats, along with links to their campaign social media accounts. Also over on our website, ardmoreleader.com, is coverage of the proposed 1-cent sales tax that will be decided by Ardmore voters next month. And speaking about the website, up on the website over the weekend, as well as in our printed newsletter, we'll have a letter to the editor calling on voters to carefully consider that proposed 1-cent sales tax here in Ardmore. One reader this week warns that rejecting the proposed sales tax hike may not necessarily mean there won't be costs. You can read this week's letter along with previous editorials and letters to the editor over on the opinion section of the website, ardmoreleader.com. After the news, we'll catch up with Ardmore financial advisor Cody Steele. We can get a look at how some stocks of local interest are closing out this trading week, and we'll get his market snapshot commentary from Friday. And just a quick reminder of a couple of important election dates to remember. We've got 2 days of early voting happening coming up on Thursday, April 2nd and Friday, April 3rd. Both of those days, early voting happening at the Carter County Election Board between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. each day. Polling places across the city will be open on Tuesday, April 7th from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. With all that said, that's the headlines. Now let's really get into the details of what happened this week in Ardmore for the week of March 27th, 2026. More leaks were found in the Ardmore High School geothermal units on Thursday after classrooms had already shut down due to damaging flooding from the roof last week. Demolition of the damaged areas started this week as students have moved to virtual learning and sections of the buildings are inaccessible, but some testing and on-campus meals have resumed. Now, water leaks discovered on the roof last week had flooded several classrooms and left puddles on desks, computer equipment, carpets, and walls. That was according to some photos shared by the district back on March 18th. Some 4,000 gallons of water were removed from the roof over the southeastern portion of the building after hundreds of gallons of water per hour leaked from geothermal units for up to 48 hours while the campus was closed for spring break. Later updates from the district said that the leaking water had damaged some HVAC equipment and that water was also identified as hazardous. The high school office was closed on Wednesday until further notice as air quality testing across the building started. And then, on Thursday, school crews found another portion of the building was flooding due to even more leaks from the geothermal system. Here is Ardmore City Schools Superintendent Andy Davis speaking to the school board on Thursday.
We had another leak over the science wing, so this is on the northwest quadrant of the building. Luckily we were able to capture it quickly. We lost probably 1,000 gallons of water, started leaking through the roof. It's leaking into the chemistry lab, into the chemical closet, so we basically shut the door and told nobody to go in there because there's a definite possibility of significant harmful toxins coming off of those chemicals. So for safety reasons, we're keeping everybody out of there.
Now, the leak discovered on Thursday is believed to be related to the first leaks from last week. Demolition work did start back on Wednesday, including the removal of carpentry, walls, and sheetrock. Davis said that disinfection efforts have also been underway for desks and chairs, and that the southeast portion of the building was cordoned off while those cleanup efforts continued. And throughout the week, several Service Master vehicles have been seen on campus, along with a roll-off dumpster there near our southeastern exit. Now, while those classrooms have been closed this week, planned ACT testing for Ardmore High School juniors did get accomplished. A testing center was set up in a gymnasium where most 11th grade students took the ACT standardized tests back on Tuesday.
Despite the challenges of this week, we're incredibly proud of our juniors. All but 5 juniors were present to take the ACT on Tuesday. Their commitment and resilience speak volumes about the culture of the Ardmore High School building. We're extremely proud of those kids.
No other Ardmore City Schools campuses were impacted by this high school water leak, and district buses otherwise running normally were also made available for those high school juniors taking the ACT test. Buses also being made available for Southern Tech students. The high school cafeteria was reopened on Wednesday to resume breakfast and lunch for students, although transportation was not being provided solely for meals. School officials were expected to announce a decision about Ardmore High School operations for next week by late Friday afternoon. Penny Brady spent several years leading a classroom before the pandemic, when she then returned to college and got her master's degree in school counseling. She now works as the counselor over at Will Rogers Elementary School. That's the grade center for Ardmore City Schools pre-K and kindergarten students. Limited funds, though, have kept her from buying a series of programs meant to bring together the community of some 350 students and 65 staff members. But on Thursday, Ardmore Leader's Project Leader program awarded Brady with a $500 Visa gift card to help her implement the programs there at Will Rogers. So now she'll be able to hold monthly activities for students and staff that she believes will create a positive school culture throughout the school year. According to her Project Leader submission, every month will be themed. September will be back to school. October will have challenges and games with Halloween or mystery themes. January will be a throwback theme. where the new year is mixed with looking at the past. Every month includes pre-planned games, challenges, and other activities aimed at team building for not only students, but also staff. Brady said that the program also aligns with professional guidelines meant to boost morale and even impact attendance. Here's Brady speaking on Thursday.
I hope it's going to help them make schools fun. When they come to school, maybe that will increase our attendance, right? Kids don't want to miss because they might miss something awesome like, a fun day planned.
Now, this ready-to-use program is expected to have multiple benefits. Brady told me that the staff won't feel any extra work since each month's theme is already planned out and resources are included. And she said students will also feel better with a better connection with the school year. Ardmore Leader chose Brady's project for its approach at building a unique learning environment for students and staff at the entire grade center. By making the planning and resources readily available for staff to implement for students, we hope that a tight-knit culture can be fostered for Ardmore's youngest students for years to come, without giving those teachers even more work. And while Brady loved having a classroom of 20 or so pre-K students, she said her current position as a counselor now gives her access to have an even bigger impact on local education.
I love my new job. It allows me to work with lots of kids, as opposed to in a classroom where you just have like a class of 20. But I still enjoy, the relationships that I have with kids. And in this role, I have more relationships with teachers.
We've now given away $2,000 to teachers in the Ardmore City Schools District, and we plan on keeping it up for the rest of the school year. I'm inviting all Ardmore City Schools teachers to submit roughly 300 words, telling me what they would do with a $500 Visa gift card. Every month, Ardmore Leader picks what we think is the best project. You can email those proposals from your district email address to connect@ardmoreleader.com. Do you have some good news you want Ardmore to know about? We can feature your announcements online, in print, and right here on this podcast for free. Visit ardmoreleader.com and check out the announcements page to submit your birth, engagement, or anniversary announcement. In just a moment, I'll conclude our 10-part Ardmore Decides 2026 interview series with Carl Stricker. He's the superintendent over at Plainview Public Schools. We'll be talking about a proposed bond package worth $42 million that will be decided by voters next month. But first, let's catch up with Ardmore financial advisor Cody Steele to hear how some stocks of local interest are performing to close out the week, right after his Edward Jones Market Snapshot commentary from Friday afternoon.
This is financial advisor Cody Steele from Edward Jones, bringing the daily financial market report. Equity markets finished weaker on Friday, led lower by consumer discretionary and financial stocks. Energy was again the top performing sector, continuing its leadership from the start of the year, boosted by higher oil prices. International markets, Asia was mixed overnight while Europe was down. In energy markets, West Texas Intermediate oil traded higher amid ongoing disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz. Despite near-term volatility, we continue to see opportunities across markets and asset classes. Within equities, we favor U.S. large and mid-cap stocks, which we believe should benefit from their quality and broadening leadership. We also see potential in international developed small and mid-cap and emerging market equities, supported by global economic resilience and relatively attractive valuations. At a sector level, we favor the industrials and consumer discretionary sectors, offset by underweight positions in consumer staples and utilities as part of our opportunistic equity sector guidance. With fixed income, international bonds can add diversification through exposure to different economic and interest rate cycles, while emerging market debt may also enhance income. The final University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Index for March was revised down to 53.3, below expectations of 54.0. Survey responses indicated that rising gas prices and volatile financial markets were key factors behind the dip. Sentiment was pressured by inflation expectations over the next year, which rose to 3.8% from 3.4% the month prior, suggesting consumers may be concerned that price pressures could persist in the near term. That said, long-term consumer inflation expectations edged down to 3.2%, likely indicating that households believe that higher inflation will not become entrenched. Bond yields extended their recent rise, with a 10-year Treasury yield near 4.44%. Most of the increase since the February lows is tied to the prospect that higher inflation, partially influenced by rising oil prices, could delay Fed rate cuts. markets have pushed back the implied timing for the next rate cut out to December of 2027, a materially slower pace of easing than the Fed's latest projections, which indicate one cut this year, followed by another cut next year. A smaller portion of the recent rise reflects higher inflation expectations, a key component of bond yields. We think the Fed remains in its easing cycle, though the path will likely be more gradual. In our view, the steady labor backdrop should allow policymakers time to confirm that the Fed preferred inflation gauge, the Personal Consumption Expenditures, PCE price index, is easing substantially towards the 2% target before proceeding with additional cuts. On a positive note, higher yields improve income potential, the primary driver of bond returns. In addition, any easing in inflation expectations could lift bond prices, which move inversely to yields. Today, U.S. equities closed lower. The Dow closed down 793 points, or 1.73%, at 45,167. The NASDAQ closed down 460 points, or 2.15%, at 20,948. The S&P 500 closed down 108 points, or 1.67%, at 6,369. And in the bond market, 10-year Treasury yields were trading at 4.43%, higher by 0.01 percentage points. In stocks of local interest, ExxonMobil was up $5.56 to $170.99 a share. Devon was up 72 cents to $52.07 a share. AT&T was up 18 cents to $29.10 a share. Walmart was up 71 cents to $122.89 a share. Albertsons was down 2 cents to $17.07 a share. Dollar General was down $2.07 to $117.16 a share. Dollar Tree was up $1.01 to $107 a share. OG&E was down 13 cents to $47.54 a share. Ollie's was down $1.28 to $89.24 a share. And lastly, O'Reilly's was down $2.16 to $90.11 a share. In commodity markets, the price of crude oil was up $5.46, or 5.78%, at $99.90 a barrel. And the spot price of gold was up $133.40, or 3.05%, to $4,509.70 an ounce. This has been today's Financial Market Report, brought to you by Edward Jones and financial advisor Cody Steele, member SIPC. Serving individual investors with personalized attention and financial advice at 333 West Main Street, Suite 275 in Ardmore, Oklahoma. If you would like additional information, please contact me at 580-223-3870. Daily commentary is also located on our website at edwardjones.com.
Does your group or organization have a public event coming up? Every episode of This Week in Ardmore wraps up with the schedule to give listeners an idea of just a few things happening around town. Email your event details to connect@ardmoreleader.com or give me a call, 319-9688, and tell me all about it. Thanks for stopping by The Junction, where we're trying to make connections between Ardmorites. I'm Ardmore Leader News Director Michael Dean Smith. The Plainview Public Schools Board of Education is asking district voters to approve 2 bond proposals totaling $42 million for school upgrades and vehicle purchases. Here to talk about this proposal package and what it means for voters ahead of the local election day on Tuesday, April 7th, is the Superintendent of Plainview Public Schools, Mr. Carl Stricker. Carl, thanks for joining me in The Junction this week.
Thank you for having us.
So for my first question, and to kind of kick this conversation off, I really just want to learn a little bit about the current state of campuses across the district, especially for somebody that maybe went to Plainview schools years ago, but kind of hasn't been back since. So just kind of briefly, how are the various sites across the district holding up? And where are some things starting to kind of show signs of their age or kind of showing signs of capacity?
Well, capacity's been the big issue over the last several years. We've had, on average, about a growth of 20 or about a classroom a year for about the last 10 years plus. So what we did is originally, when we recognized that we're going to grow at the elementary, we tend to grow at the elementary first, at the lower levels. And as that grows, those numbers naturally continue to go up to the secondary level. So as we go through this bond issue that's been put together, a lot of that will address secondary growth, capacity issues. The buildings have held up very well. The community is very, very supportive of the district and has been very gracious in allowing us to do the things that we can do. They're in good condition. There's always routine maintenance that we have to do, and some of the things that are included on this bond proposal would be in that category, such as roofing replacements and HVAC replacements, and those are things that you periodically have to do because they have a useful life. And it's just like your roof on your home. You get this many years, and then you have to replace it. It's just the way that it works. So that's kind of what we've been doing for the last several years. But really, we've been mainly looking at the growth side of things and how we've been growing.
Okay. I kind of want to learn a little bit about how this package of 2 bond proposals came about. I know last year the board had a facility review committee kind of do some campus tours. They held some meetings. And earlier this year, that facility review committee recommended roughly $22 million worth of upgrades. What were some of those projects that the facility review committee felt were really important? And then what were some of the things that they felt could be put on the back burner for now?
Well, I mean, the way that process worked, that started like last year. And once the facility review committee is put together, they will go through every building on campus. They will look at every site. They go through, we do surveys. We survey out to the community, the school staff. The review committee looks at those surveys. They go through, and then they start looking at these various projects that they think that we might need to do, and we look at all of these projects that are needed, and then they are gone through and they are prioritized, and a lot of those projects have been they're ranked, and then of course you go through and you say, well, what can we do, and what can we do? What is the biggest needs and things like that. There's always much more needs than what you want to be able to do. There were some things that did not make the list, some things like parking lots and some other things in some other areas that need to be delayed a little bit because obviously you prioritize what you think is going to be the most impactful that you need to do and you need to address. And the biggest part of that is space for us. There is some maintenance items or some end-of-life items on there. And then, of course, technology, we try to look at that at every issue because that is so hard to keep up with. I mean, it just goes so fast. So that's always on there. And then transportation as well. It's kind of a rotation that you have to do because as those buses age and wear out, you have to replace them with something. But really, the biggest focus was going to be on space, on needs for growth.
Okay. Voters in the Plainview School District will actually see 2 bond proposals on their ballots next month. The smaller of the 2 proposals, $820,000, if it's approved, can only be spent on student transportation. But then the larger proposal between those 2 is worth just over $41 million. That's obviously where most of the spending is, at least half of that going towards some pretty major upgrades to the activity center. Looking deeper at kind of how this whole package of bond proposals was developed, how were some of those other priorities formed when trying to determine what could be done district-wide, kind of while you said, though, still working within the confines of the bonding capacity of the district?
Again,
like everything outside of the facility review committee, too.
Yes. Well, we have a 6-year continuously rotating capital improvement plan that we go through. And the board does study this every year. And basically what we do is we look at that. And we also have several things that we track. We track the ages of our roof. We track the ages of our HVAC. We track the ages of our vehicles. We track the ages of our buildings, and we continuously look at that. And then, of course, throughout the year, you have to go through every year. And as you're going through your normal maintenance procedures, you're looking for things that possibly will come up in the future on you and that you might want to address or that you need to address. A lot of it, again, is focused on space, classroom space, and also addressing some athletic deficiencies that we have as far as space goes. But then it incorporated a lot of different things as well. And that's kind of the thing about we have to do the 2 propositions because Proposition 2 is strictly school buses. So, and then everything else has to be thrown into one. So you're talking about student vehicles. You're not talking about school buses. You're talking about things like driver's education cars. You're talking about, SUV kind of things like that. You're talking about technology. You're talking about roofing, HVAC, those kinds of things. So all that has to be lumped into that first category of Proposition 1. So, yeah.
And for a breakdown, actually, of the bond proposal, we will have a link to that over on our website, ardmoreleader.com. We're talking with Plainview Public Schools Superintendent Carl Stricker. Finally, the Plainview bond proposals I've noticed in recent history have been pretty widely supported by voters. I don't think I've seen anything in the past decade with less than about 80% voter approval. And in that time, we've seen additional class space added, the early childhood facility, safe rooms. How does the district stay engaged with, not just parents and students? That's pretty straightforward, but how is the district just staying in touch with stakeholders across the school district to make sure that these kind of projects are getting the necessary support from the community?
That's where our facility review committee comes into play. Okay. We really focus on patron committees that we can get out and talk to people and really share that need. We try to discuss things any chance and any opportunity we get, and we always invite our community. We have great community support, great community participation, so they're on our facilities all the time. We like to have them in our buildings. We like to have them at our games. We like to have them in our facilities. So we really want to try to engage our community as much as we can. They have been very supportive over the past, and they're a very wonderful community, and we really appreciate that. And they kind of see what we've got and what we're about. So we just really want to try to keep in touch with our stakeholders, and we try to reach out to people as best that we can.
And just kind of looking at some of where a lot of this is going, there's about $7.3 million kind of earmarked in this package for the high school, another almost $5.9 million for some baseball and softball athletic facilities, tons of other district-wide stuff, like I said, for technology, HVAC, roofing. What is one of the areas that this bond proposal package is looking at that you think is going to be the most important for the district, especially for the next 10 years or so?
Well, to me, the most important is going to be the space. And that starts with classroom additions. Having that classroom to address the growth that we have now and potentially some future growth would be very important to us, right? So the classroom additions are very important. And then obviously when you start to grow and your programs start to grow, then you're going to have space for other things to happen. And that's where those other projects come into play as well. Obviously, I want to see the roofs get done. I want to see HVAC maintained. We need school buses. We have to transport the kids. We want to transport the kids. So those things are always important. But the most impactful to me right now is classroom space. It's getting that needed space.
All right. Well, voters in the Plainview School District have 2 days of early voting coming up on Thursday, April 2nd and Friday, April 3rd. Polling places across Ardmore will be open on Tuesday, April 7th from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Talking with us about the Plainview Public Schools bond proposal package, Superintendent Carl Stricker. Mr. Stricker, thanks so much for joining me this week. Appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for downloading episode 57 of This Week in Ardmore. This is our area's original weekly news and public affairs podcast from Ardmore's only locally owned newsroom, Ardmore Leader. Now, you've heard about our weekly printed newsletter that we distribute to some restaurants and waiting rooms around town. You can actually have a digital copy of that newsletter sent directly to your email every Friday. Check out the website, ardmoreleader.com, and then scroll to the very bottom of the homepage to get signed up for free. And make sure you're following us online. You've obviously found the podcast, so make sure you're subscribed. Links and details are on our independently owned podcast server, listen.ardmoreleader.com, or just search for Ardmore Leader wherever you stream music and podcasts. We're also centralized and decentralized social media, anything from Facebook to Mastodon. Just search Ardmore Leader. You can also find all of our content paywall free at ardmoreleader.com. We have been getting a lot more letters to the editor in recent weeks. I want to thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and opinions and even poems. If you want to see your thoughts published locally or want to be part of the podcast, you can sound off. Visit ardmoreleader.com, submit your letter to the editor there, or if you want to be on the podcast, break out your smartphone and record a voice note. Email it to soundoff@ardmoreleader.com. Please do make sure you keep a recording under 60 seconds and make sure you include your full name in the email so you can stand behind your statements. Now, if your group or organization has a public event coming up, let me know and I'll see about getting it on the schedule. This is a weekly calendar of events on our area's original local news podcast, This Week in Ardmore. In public meetings next week, the Carter County Commission will hold their regular meeting on Monday morning, March 30th at 9 a.m. at the County Administration Building. They're on the corner of A Street and Broadway here in downtown Ardmore. That agenda is available over on the county's website, cartercountyok.us. Among items to be considered by county commissioners next week is a possible renewal of the countywide burn ban. A breakfast bash is happening at the clubhouse coming up on Saturday morning, March 28th. Hop over to the clubhouse and join Ardmore Parks and Rec for a morning of pancakes, crafts, and other Easter activities. Entry is $5, but that includes a $5 arcade card. This breakfast bash happening at the clubhouse coming up on Saturday, March 28th from 9 a.m. until 11 a.m. First Baptist Church Ardmore's Children and Preteens Ministry, they're inviting the community to the Regional Park Pavilion coming up on Friday, April 3rd for an Easter egg hunt. This event will include inflatables, snow cones, popcorn, and cotton candy, with an egg hunt for young kids and then a separate egg hunt for first grade and older. This event, hosted by First Baptist Ardmore, is happening on Friday, April 3rd from 4:30 until 6:30 p.m. at the Regional Park Pavilion. Registration for youth baseball and softball is happening now through the Ardmore Family YMCA. Whether it's blast ball for the 3-year-olds or maybe baseball or fast pitch softball for high school sophomores, registration is happening now through Monday, April 6th at the front desk of the Ardmore Family YMCA. Parks and Recreation is also inviting dog owners to hit the trails at the Regional Park Dog Park next month. Coming up on Saturday, April 11th, grab the leash and join a relaxed, dog-friendly walk where pups of all sizes are welcome. This event, hosted by Ardmore Parks and Recreation, Barktown, and Ardmore Animal Care. This is going to be happening at 10 a.m. on Saturday, April 11th, over at the Regional Park Dog Park. And area tweens will have their own opportunity to welcome in the spring weather with the HFV Wilson Community Center Sneaker Ball Spring Fling for 5th and 6th graders. Photographers will be capturing all the fashion. A DJ will be keeping the vibes alive. This Sneaker Ball Spring Fling at HFV Wilson Community Center is happening for area 5th and 6th grade students coming up on Friday, April 17th from 6 p.m. until 8 p.m. Advance tickets are $10 per student or will be $15 at the door. Concessions and photo opportunities will also be available for purchase. Call 319-5350 for more information or to buy your advance tickets. I'm Ardmore Leader News Director Michael Dean Smith. Thank you for listening to episode 57 of This Week in Ardmore. Follow us online, ardmoreleader.com, or on social media. And until next Friday, I hope you have a positive week ahead.